This is a training for lead magnet mastery. And what I'm going to cover in this training is how we can look at lead magnets in a fresh new way. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background, because I had some fun when I was researching this topic, because I've been working with lead magnets for a long time. Let me just put it that way. And lead magnets are a great way to attract prospects, leads, let people get to know the solutions you provide while you sleep. Okay, so this is where we can really take advantage of the digital age, and we can look at, we can look at different ways to just put our, present our business out there. And one of the things that I think people are not paying enough attention to, and we can talk about this, is how to create a lead magnet that's of a lateral interest to your prospect, something that could augment their journey, or something that's not necessarily in your wheelhouse, but you know that they have an interest in it and it could help them. So that's also a way we could look at doing different things. Like, for example, I have a client in Boston, and they're a shuttle bus company. So they have shuttle buses that take people from mass transit to corporate headquarters, or they'll do an employee shuttle at a hospital, or they'll do a campus shuttle. And when we were trying to fill their shuttles and the non-work hours, like evenings and weekends in particular, for weddings and bar mitzvahs and all these different types of party events. And so what we did was we created a content marketing through just doing some really good blog posts that were about preparing for your wedding. So it was all about the wedding stuff, but it was specific to Boston. And within that content, we had coupons for discounts on the wedding shuttle. So like picking up the wedding party from the hotel, taking it to the church, and then over to the venue for the reception, and so on and so forth. So that way people could kind of let their hair down, if you know what I mean. And it worked great, because what was happening is they were posting this and it was going out on social media. And of course, it was getting cached in all the search engines around the topic of weddings in Boston. They started getting eyeballs on their stuff that they would not have normally done. So you would think, okay, why is a shuttle bus company talking about weddings? Especially when there's so much wedding stuff out there. So that's one example of a lateral content marketing piece that you can use to attract new eyeballs and also attract your prospects, but in a related way. Because essentially, any of those people that were interested in, where's the best place to find a wedding gown in Boston, would be having a wedding and they would need some transportation for their wedding guests. So it worked out great and got them a lot of attention. So the first thing I want to do is talk about kind of the history of lead magnets. And back in the day, lead magnets were mostly in the form of ebooks. And if you remember when, you could download this ebook, download this white paper, and then they started expanding into these other devices that included, cheat sheets, assessments, guides. There's so many different models that you could do. All you got to do is Google lead magnets and you'll find a ton of stuff. And it's interesting because HubSpot is a company out of Boston, speaking of Boston, and they basically coined inbound marketing, which is a way to draw people in through the content that you're publishing. And so when you have an inbound marketing campaign, where you can use your lead magnets is in your inbound marketing content. For example, if you have a blog post and you're writing about a topic and you have a cheat sheet or a downloadable swipe file that is related to the content, like if you're teaching somebody how to do something, well, here's a swipe file to save you time and money. Well, in that content, because a blog post is basically free for anybody, right? You have to give your name and email address. So that's the main concept behind a lead magnet, which is obviously you want to grow your list, because your list is where all your potential clients are. And over time, you're going to be nurturing that list through a newsletter, through some specific thing that's connected to your lead magnet, or whatever content marketing strategy you have. So that way they encounter your content online somewhere, or it's someone forwards a link, they see it in a social media feed, they see it in an ad. They may be at a conference and picks a tchotchke up that has something on it that they can go and look at a website or text something. There's a million different ways to get somebody to your content. And then what happens is they go to get that piece of value content, which is the lead magnet, but they have to give their email and their name in order to get that. So what I've noticed in probably the last couple of years is that everybody and anybody's doing lead magnets, and it's very formulaic. And what has been, in my opinion, disappointing is that they're creating lead magnets for lead magnets' sake. So it's just a list building device when they're really not providing a lot of value. So it's almost like the content that they're creating in their blog post is truncated, like it's real superficial. And then they tease you with the lead magnet. Oh, if you want to learn more, or if you want to do this, like actually get some value out of this topic, you have to give me your name and email address. Now, that's fine. It's a little bait and switchy because the lead magnet in those cases typically is still like the blog post. It's still not giving enough information. It's just getting them a little bit further along. And I think that's what's really degraded lead magnets over the years. It's been the fact that people aren't putting the time and thought into them. And I'm speaking very generically, right? So there are a lot of companies that are investing a lot of time and effort into creating some really great lead magnets. So that's kind of been the history of lead magnets. And when video started coming online and getting more popular, 4, 5, 6 years ago, all of a sudden lead magnets became video series, which, Stacy, that's what you're doing, right? So the power of the video series is it gets you obviously a lot closer to that prospect from the standpoint of them getting exposure of you. So I'm a huge advocate of the video series. But at the end of the day, your lead magnet has got to provide tremendous value, almost like you're giving away your whole thing. And here's the thing that people miss, because they always kind of want to withhold and not give all their goods away, thinking, well, I'm not going to give it all away for free. And that's the first mistake that a lot of solopreneurs make, is they want to keep everything because they want to be paid for their stuff. Well, here's the real truth. The people that are consuming your stuff and getting your free stuff, they still need your guidance. They still need your help. They still need your ability to help them customize what it is that they're doing. And so 9 times out of 10, if you give them enough where they can really move the needle and take a step in the right direction and solve a problem, especially if it's an early stage problem, you've won their trust, right? So it's almost like selling them something that's a very low cost, even though it's free, and you're able to really work with them in such a way that they get a result. The downside about all of this kind of like crappy lead magnet work that people have been putting into the marketing stream is that we are all wise to it. And what I mean by that is we know that if we want this thing or want to explore it, we've got to give up our name and email. But what we also know is that we're probably going to get a bunch of crap in our inbox. And we don't know if that provider is nefarious and if they're going to sell our email address. So it's a dicey thing. And so people are becoming much more aware of the risk that they're exposing themselves to. And so that's actually something that's making them decide not to engage in lead magnets as much as they used to in the past. And so with that said, one of the things that I came across that I really like is a concept of evergreen lead magnets. So lead magnets aren't going away anytime soon, right? We have to provide something out there to help people start engaging with us, start looking at our business, and really start seeing how we can help them, because they're trying to solve a problem and they're trying to decide if what we're giving them is going to help them do that. And if we give them enough to help them determine if that's something that, oh yeah, this is the right person for what I need, then that's really the key. So much work has to be put into understanding the progress that your prospects go through in order to solve the problem that you can solve for them. So evergreen lead magnets And this is still, I think, relatively undefined because I tried to do additional research on this online. And I think what I came up with as far as my definition of it is evergreen means that it's got a long shelf life. It's something that you set it and forget it kind of thing, which we all would love about lead magnets because that'll draw us, draw prospects in while we're sleeping, right? That's like the dream thing. Absolutely. And so with an evergreen lead magnet, you have to choose a topic or a lead magnet, I guess, structure that can be something that has a long shelf life, that is about best practices, for example, and that also is something that you can continue getting them to look at. And I think that is the part that is more important about this kind of lead magnet 3.0. And when you can get your prospect to come back to that lead magnet or that lead magnet space, and a space could be like you could have a resource library of swipe files that they continually come back to, almost like they're signed up for a membership in a way, or it could be through your newsletter where you know that they have an interest in something and then you keep giving them little techniques and tips to actually use in their own business. So that is an example of an evergreen lead magnet where it's something that, yes, you may need to maintain it, but if you can keep people in front of you and looking at your stuff, then that is something that's going to be really valuable because you'll stay top of mind. And when they get to that point where they're like, I'm tired of trying to figure this out myself, I need help, and I'm going to reach out to my, this resource. So those are the things that I kind of, in the research I did in preparing for this, that I've really kind of come across when it comes to, just designing something with a lot of thought in mind. And if you put the time in up front and do this work, you can actually create something that you would never have to, you'd never have to change. And so the goal with getting a lead magnet that is all about making sure that you keep that, as Peter, as you said, stickiness, you want to make sure that what you're doing is easy for you to maintain and has enough value that they will come back to it again. So in my world, when I create a conversion website, and Stacy, you're familiar with this, but when I create a conversion website, it's all about having the lead magnet lead them into the newsletter or some sort of regular nurturing. So they may download the initial lead magnet, go through that series, and then you're starting that relationship. So you want to continue that communication. And one of the worst things is to have a standard newsletter where you're just kind of like sharing things that are like more of a time waster than they are something that's actually going to help move the needle forward to them, for the people that are opting into these lead magnets. So that's kind of like the whole lead magnet bubble. All right. So you guys basically get what lead magnets are, how they can be used, how they were used, understanding that people know that they're going to get, I don't want to say spammed, but some of them will be spamming, but that you are going to continue that conversation through subsequent emails when you get a lead magnet. Now, I mentioned HubSpot out of Boston earlier. They coined inbound marketing, which is all about content marketing. And they have literally become so prevalent with the vast amount of content that they have online that if you searched anything in their vertical, which is all around marketing, communications, things like that are about customer experience, anything in that marketing bubble, they will have an article that has content in it. And I remember when HubSpot first started doing this, they had a lot of gated content. Gated content is just another term for where you go to a pop-up or a landing page and it says, here, download this, but you got to fill in all these questions. Now, the value of going beyond doing just name and email, like let's say you're asking maybe 2 or 3 more questions at that gate, what that enables you to do is segment your list. And when you segment your list, you're able to get very specific about the topic that prospect wants to be wants to understand. So if you have a kind of a general thing that you talk about, but they're interested in this and this, you can segment them to there, and then they get very specific content. And that is a really powerful way to make sure that the content that you are giving as a follow-up for your lead magnet really connects with them and that they'll stay on your list. And so those are just some little nuances about lead magnets. So I want to talk about a couple of things around lead magnet, and then I want to get into, how to get these things started, okay? Because it really requires a lot of brainstorming. And by the way, I have a worksheet that is a brainstorming worksheet that will help you figure this out, that I'll email you after the session today. So you'll have that to work on and play with. So there are 4 things that, from a kind of a design standpoint, and you have to remember with your lead magnet, whether it's video, ebook, PDF download, whatever, spreadsheet that you want to send that's got cells already with formulas in them or whatever. You want to make sure that these things are always present in your lead magnets. 1, consistent template and branding. So whatever lead magnet you have, you want to make sure that they're very consistent. So if someone held up 3 of your lead magnets, you know that they were all from you. All right, that goes without saying. Contact information. This is super important. So you don't want to be salesy and pitchy in your lead magnet, right? But you want to give them the opportunity to take the next step with you, whether that's a consult, whether that's getting another one of your lead magnets, whether that's being on your list or a different list. You want to make sure that they have that call to action, but more importantly, contact information. So you should always have, the website, a phone number, whatever's specific to what you're doing. If it's a specific landing page, whatever that URL is, you want to make sure that that's in there. And if it's a multiple page PDF, every page. So it's going to be your logo, you're going to have contact information. All of that needs to be in there, because if they're looking at this, you want to give them as much ample opportunities to connect with you beyond the lead magnet as possible. The other thing is, and this is a very subtle thing that a lot of people don't do, because I'm all about permission-based marketing, meaning don't send somebody something just because, and speakers are notorious for doing this, because you'll meet somebody, exchange business cards at a networking event, and they'll automatically put you on their mailing list and you start getting their newsletter. And I wish I could just say to every speaker who does that to stop doing that, because it chips away at the relationship, the integrity of the relationship, because it's like you want to support them and not feel bad about opting out because you're connected and you're in the network and you're both speakers or whatever it is. Oh my God. And then but then it's like whenever they send you is completely unrelated to anything you're interested in. I'm sorry, that was just a little bit of a rant. So the third thing is to manage expectations. And when I say manage expectations, you want to be super clear what you are doing or not doing with their email address and what they will or will not be receiving from you as a result of downloading that newsletter. So as far as part of the Can Spam Act and what we need to do as ethical emailers is we need to, on every email, we need to state why they're getting that email. And so you should always make sure that that's clear. You're receiving this email because you opted into a lead magnet on our site, or we met you at a networking event. I mean, you can say, because sometimes you have no idea how they're going to get there, right? So, but beyond that, you want to say, this is what we'll continue to send you. Like, we're going to add you to our newsletter and you'll learn about this, that, and the other. So there's a little bit of a, teeter-totter there, because if on one side, by saying that, right, you're managing expectations, even though they only opted in for the lead magnet. But if your newsletter or follow-on, this is why it's so important to plan this right. If it's in the same vein and you're staying in your lane and you're just adding more value through this evergreen lead magnet that you're doing, then they're going to be cool with it because they'll be able to use it. But if it's something that's completely different, or you're just lumping them into your newsletter, which is kind of all over the place, then that's not going to work. So there's a school of thought on the other side that says, no, you have to ask again. If you're going to be sending them something additional, that you have to get them to opt in again. So there's two schools there, and the best way to determine if if you should do one or the other is obviously how well you're communicating your intentions and managing those expectations. And then the other is all about making sure that your stuff is in alignment. And when you see your analytics on your, your reports of bounces and unsubscribes based on spam, there's a problem there that you need to address. So you want to make sure you're constantly monitoring what's going on with your email sends. And then the fourth thing is you need to reinforce value. So when I say reinforce value, it's really about creating this content that will continue to provide value over time. So it's one thing to do a one-hit wonder where they come and they get their swipe file and then they're good to go, right? But if it's a piece of content, this is why I talk about evergreen, it's a piece of content that they continually can consume and enjoy and use and like rely on, that where they're saying, oh my God, I can't believe this is free, then that's something that you definitely want to include in that. So the last thing I want to touch on after those 4 design things is when you go to start planning your lead magnet, the best place to start is understanding the journey that your prospect, AKA your ideal client, is on in their search for a solution. So you don't just look at, here I do this and who needs it, right? And try to match that up. What you really want to do is you want to get in your client's shoes. You want to understand the decisions that they're trying to make in order to solve the problem that you can solve. And how are they going about making those decisions? What are they doing? Where are they searching online? Who are they talking to? What are they trying that isn't working? How are they going about it? And so those will give you some amazing ideas on how to create a lead magnet that helps them along those early stages. So I talk a lot about early stage engagement. So when you first start working with a new client, you want to see, well, what happens there? What is my service or product that they're consuming? What do they basically start with me and start buying from me? Whether it's a keynote, a workshop, a training session, a coaching, whatever that is, where does it usually start? And then how does it progress? And so helping them make that first step to paying you is really key in the underpinnings of your lead magnet. That way you're managing expectations through your content, as well as helping them make a decision faster and feeling better about that decision that they're making. So if you can give them some things that help them accomplish those tasks so they can get to the bigger, part of the dinner, if you will, that's really going to go a long way to setting you up as a partner in the long run. Because if you're helping them solve those, and some of them might even be administrative, they don't necessarily have to be directly in your solution family. They can be, here's how to find the best, workshop leader for your small private retreat or something like that. And so the more specific you can be about helping them with those early stage issues and challenges, the more powerful your lead magnet's going to be. And then the only other thing I wanted to touch on again was about the lateral topic, right? So I started talking about how the shuttle company in Boston started creating a lot of content around weddings, where to buy the best gown in Boston, all this stuff. And that is a lateral piece of content that gets people who are interested in wedding transportation, but they're thinking about their wedding. They're not thinking about transportation, they're thinking about the gown, the people, the invites, the photographer, the venue, all of that stuff. But at some point, they're going to need to make a decision about transportation for their guests. So that's a great example of a lateral lead magnet that can be really powerful. And then just, to summarize, don't create a lead magnet just to build your list. Have the intention of really providing value and helping them along that journey, that early stage of the journey of them doing what they're doing. and you will become a trusted resource for sure as they continue working on the project that they're working on. Okay? All right.